how are we today? Fixing the hair because it's a mess and I haven't done it. I'm so excited for today. Like, so excited. I have Bryana from The Conscious Mommy jumping on, and have found her Instagram and her work super inspiring when looking into how to be kinder to yourself. No ADHD talk, but you will absolutely love Bryana. She's really, really interesting. So let's jump on with her and just like dive right in. My internet is not great either, so hopefully this will be okay. Bryana from The Conscious Mommy. I obviously don't have kids, and so why would I have Bryana on? Hi!
Hey, how's it going, Erin?
I am so excited. I have so many things that I'm just like elated to talk to you about. And so I'm not even gonna wait, because you are a licensed marriage and child family psychotherapist, psychologist.
Yes, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I specialize in perinatal, infant, and early childhood mental health.
Okay, perfect. And you have a really interesting Instagram page that I have found to be fascinating, because in many ways we're seeing such a cultural shift on how to kind of even parent ourselves. And I'm going to take your course. I just signed up for it. But I think a lot of our generation is the generation of the American dream, which you kind of talked about in one of your videos. And the things that were important was, you know, shelter, food on the table, good education, all of the things. And now we're seeing a cultural shift, and you really deep dive what is called conscious parenting. Can you kind of, in a short amount of way, like describe what is conscious parenting?
Conscious parenting is being aware of ourselves, how our past has influenced the way we show up in the present moment with our children, so that we can step out of our children's way. So we don't have to be in charge of saying, this is who you are, this is who I expect you to be, this is who you need to be, right? All of my unrealized hopes and dreams are now projected onto you, and I expect you to live that out for me. We resist that, and we let go of those types of expectations and that traditional way of parenting. And instead we see, who is this child here in front of me? What are they about? And how can I be a guide and an usher for them, while also still holding boundaries by guiding them and teaching them, you know, in the expectations of what the world is going to need from them and expect from them. Of course, we're not, a lot of the pushback that I get is, oh, you know, you're raising sissies, or you're raising kids who can't handle the real world. And it's like, well, okay, if the mentality is I have to bring in the harshness of the real world into my home in order to prepare my child for what it's like outside of my home, then we're all drinking a Kool-Aid that's not serving us. Like, why are millennials the most anxious generation of people and the most anxious generation of modern parents? Because we are dealing with the aftermath of just decades and decades and decades of not looking at mental health, not supporting people's emotional health and emotional development. So yeah, that's what conscious parenting really does. It calls us into that and teaches us how to do that.
We've been culturally gaslit.
Yes.
And, you know, I think what's really interesting now, and for everybody tuning in, Bryana from The Conscious Mommy, I obviously don't have kids, but I'm really taking your class to, in the event I do have kids, of course, I want to level up and understand that, but also do a deeper understanding of myself and try to reparent myself, because I've been through one hell of a year dealing with a lot of loss, a lot of change, a lot of transition. And I'm like, I got to figure myself out, because I'm not trying to project all this onto all of my other relationships.
Yes.
But I think what you say is really interesting, because you know, we're dealing with generational trauma. We've been through so much. And now we're at the age, you know, where you're seeing millennials have the most anxiety of any generation, But now I'm worried about our kids, like our kids and what they're going to prioritize, right? With the onset of social media. Is that something that has, and this wasn't even a question, but now that you brought that up, I'm like so curious about the health of my niece who's 12 and is on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the research is really clear. Early access to social media does have a significant impact on mental health, increased depression, increased anxiety, more likely to be comparing your life to that of others. And none of us are actually putting our real lives online. We just put the bits and pieces that we want people to see and know. So it's creating like even like a deeper sense of inferiority complexes. So we're seeing that come out in Gen Z. But what I think is really beautiful about the generations that are being raised on social media, like you and I, we were not raised on social media. Like it's the Gen Z, it's my kids, like they're being raised with that just being embedded into their lives. We're also seeing this generation embracing conversations of mental health in ways that like previous generations just simply were not. So I think while yes, there is an impact, I also think it does create a platform. If we're using it in a way that can be healing, it can create a platform for healing and for us to really connect with each other in a more vulnerable and authentic way. So it's really in how you use it.
I appreciate that reframe, you know, because I'm a catastrophizer. I have such bad anxiety. I go right for the worst thing that could possibly happen. Trauma. Yeah. But because in my mind, I'm like, well, these kids are being raised on making sure they get over a certain number of likes and a certain number of comments.
Yeah.
And another, like, what was always anxiety inducing for me in high school, which was like, where is lunch going to be? Like, am I going on campus? Am I going on? I mean, it was always like so stress induced for me. Being under the lights of feeling like I was needing to be accepted by my peers, which of course is a very deep thing anyways. So that's what I went to. I went to that negative place, but like, I think that it can have an overall even more optimistic way of looking at it, depending on the way you use it.
And I think just developmentally, like, of course, adolescents and young adults are going to need that acceptance from their peers. And there's a reason why, because they're starting to differentiate and pull themselves away from their family of origin. And so we tend to, when we're differentiating ourselves from our family of origin, we now cling to other people. And so that acceptance is really, it's really about belonging and about needing community and needing connection, which I think is the most healing thing that is really missing from the majority of our lives, is a deep, deep, deep sense of connection. I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel understood, I feel safe. That especially when we're raised in like environments that really deny or dismiss us for who we are, or reject us, or are really limiting or overly strict. I don't want anybody to like misinterpret. I'm very like crystal clear with my kids. But when I say like overly strict, I really mean like controlling and like over the top. I'm controlling you because I need your obedience, not necessarily because obedience is what's right for you, you know? So when we're kind of raised in these environments, we feel really squashed and we have to mask who we are in order to fit in. So now it's no longer about belonging. It's about changing who I am so I can fit in and be accepted and be likable for this facade now that I'm wearing. So even when we're talking about conscious parenting, like, yes, I focus on what's happening in a parental relationship, but there is conscious reparenting, like what you're talking about, and really like embracing, gosh, what were the ways that, you know, what happened to me as a kid? What did I experience when I was a child? Did I feel seen and heard and respected? Did I feel squashed? Did I feel small? What was the regular, like typical to be expected experience that I had? And then the big question is, and how does that show up for me right now, in the here and now? And when we get good at asking questions like that, it really teaches us how to be in the present moment, and it gives us a pathway toward healing. It gives us a pathway toward letting go of all the things that we were told we needed to be, and teaches us to embrace who we actually are. And I think that's a really beautiful healing journey that so many people are on.
Yeah. Well, and that was why I wanted to have you on, was I was like, you know, I use sports as a microcosm for big picture cultural things. And I think you know, can use your platform, and you do use your platform, and I try to use my platform as a way for others to rediscover that it's okay when you're not feeling great all the time. And the parent needing the child to be obedient because the parent can't control themselves when the child is being disobedient, then that's on the parent. And I agree, you know, it's so interesting you brought that up. That was going to be my next question. For those of us who may not have felt seen, or if we showed ourselves in different environments, we were either attacked or perhaps abandoned. How do we foster that in a child? And then obviously for us adults who still struggle or who want to live a more authentic life, where do we start with ourselves?
Yeah. So my suggestion is to always start with ourselves before we attempt to foster something within our child that we have not yet figured out how to do for ourselves. It's okay to do them at the same time, but fostering a sense of authenticity within yourself when you were abandoned for it or you were rejected for it starts with self-compassion. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm enough as I am.
I'm gonna cry. That's amazing. Yeah.
True. Like, I'm not broken. And being able to really sit with that and appreciate that about yourself and stop leaning. We have to resist that urge to lean and need others to affirm what is already true within us, which is we are good enough as we are. So when we can really internalize that message, it truly, I am telling you, I've seen it over and over and over again, 11 years working in my field, in my own experiences as a parent. When we internalize that, it just like organically flows out of us into our child. It's like an energy shift. Then I don't have to like remind myself to see the good in my child. It's that I see the good within myself, and now it's easy for me to see the good within my child. And there's something really beautiful and grace-filled about that. And I think we need a lot more grace. If we want more healing, we need more grace. And this is really the way to start. Self-compassion, really honoring ourselves. And I think it's a beautiful practice to begin.
And in many respects, you're a compassion coach. You know, you're teaching that. And I think with a lot of the grief I experienced this past year, in a way of making sure it doesn't make me bitter or too resentful, because I feel resentful. I know I do. I'm angry about it. Offering compassion and understanding myself better, and the emotions that come up, whether it's shame, guilt, regret, all of the things, has really empowered me to show up so much better for other people. Like, my grace and compassion for me is like mind-blowing in how much it's up-leveled and elevated my relationships with other people.
Absolutely. And that ability to like sit with your grief and to just be present to it, to the whatever.
But I struggle with that. I'm a little bit of an avoider. So like, I'm not always trying to sit with my grief. I mean, like, so I wish I could do a better job. I avoid it. I overstack my schedule, and I choose to go out instead of staying home.
I can relate. Busy is also my trauma response. I get.
Okay,
but that's a practice.
Yeah.
Right? It's a practice for us. Even if I'm so uncomfortable with my grief, but I sit with it for 30 seconds, and then I surround myself with comfort and love and compassion, and then I move forward. Like, that's me learning that practice of sitting with what makes me feel uncomfortable. And the more we can work on that. Just being with what makes us feel uncomfortable. Truly, what I think is that that's what actually prepares us for life. That's what prepares us for the world. Because there's just so much about the world that is just, it's a lot of discomfort. And so learning how to sit with discomfort, learning how to be with pain, and knowing, and I think the message behind conscious parenting is, I can't take your pain away, but I can teach you how to be with it. And you're going to not be alone in it. There is something just so connected and lovely about that knowledge that I'm not alone. I've got people with me, and I'm not going to be abandoned for whatever I might be going through or whatever I might be feeling. I won't be rejected. I will be held and contained and supported. And then as I grow up into a functional, competent adult, I will be able to do the same for those around me, which is what you're working on. As a functional, competent adult, you are working on giving this to yourself and then being able to do that for those around you. That's so beautiful. I love it.
I don't know why I feel like I'm getting emotional, but I am feeling a sense of emotion because it does sort of put into reflection when we go through really hard times, it's setting us up, right? And that's why we hate it and we numb it, or we distract from it, or we avoid it. But like when we can turn the tables around and say, what is this doing for me so that I can be better in a setting where there's other dysregulation or discomfort. Like I was feeling it a little last night. And then I'm like, ooh, that thing is happening where I'm feeling like it's the holidays and there's pressure and avoid, all of those things. And I'm like shaming myself. I should be more intentional and all of these things. And then I just went like, they're just feelings, right? Like, why am I scared of the feeling? And then it went through. And now I'm like here today talking to you and feeling a lot better about it.
I recently came across this indigenous way of looking at mental health and feelings. And so in that example, one of the questions they would say is, the spirit of avoidance is visiting me. And what is it trying to teach me? So I think that I love that framework, because it shows us that, first of all, these things come in and out. They flow like everything else in nature. And secondly, there's a reason for it. We all, in your case, you developed avoidance. I'm also an avoidant kind of person. So like avoidance was how we coped. It was how we survived whatever environment we were in. And so there's something adaptive about it because it kept us alive. It brought us here today. But what is it being here in this present moment trying to teach me and show me? Maybe it's trying to show me it doesn't serve me anymore. Because now maybe I'm noticing my avoidance is actually disconnecting me in a time where I actually want to feel connected. It's keeping me stuck in the lonely feeling in a time that feels very heavy to feel lonely in the holiday season. And so this spirit of avoidance is visiting me to remind me what you really desire and what you really crave is connection, and this coping skill is no longer serving you. Let me find something else. Isn't that so beautiful? That way to look at it? Oh, I just love it.
It's gentle, it's tender, it's compassionate.
Yeah.
I only have a few more minutes with you. I want to be respectful of your time. I know how busy you are. Really quickly, the topic of bullying. Your child comes home from school, and I know the reason why I bring up bullying is it can happen at work. You have a boss, you have a coworker.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, because I did want to get into 2023 reflections and how that looks for you. But if you don't mind discussing bullying, because I'm sure moms and dads have it with their kids, but then also we have it as a big adult children.
Yes. So I'm gonna approach it separately because we're having two different conversations. Children bullying can have a number of factors. There can be some developmental things happening, meaning either the children lack social skills, or this child is having some kind of, maybe they're neurodivergent. ADHD children are 4 times more likely to be bullies, 10 times more likely to be bullied. So there are some different scenarios that might impact the exposure to bullying. And then also environmental stressors. How is this child being treated at home? For a lot of children, their first bully is their parent. And why is a parent bullying a child? Is it because this parent's is mean, evil parent? No, it's because the parent is also has some emotional immaturity and lacks some social skills, doesn't feel really confident and effective in getting their point across, and is resorting to threatening tactics or punishing kind of tactics because that's the only way that they can feel successful. So you see, we don't demonize anybody, especially in these contexts. There's no need to demonize. We really just want to be curious and understand the why. And then it's teaching the child who is being bullied how to say, no, I don't like that. Get a really good friend who also stands up for them, and find better ways to cope and separate, and get the school involved. For the kid who is doing the bullying, therapy. They need to be in therapy, and the family needs to be in therapy. Often they don't end up going into therapy for a myriad of reasons, but those children do need extra support. Now, when you've got a bullying situation at work between adults, this is a boundary violation. At this point, I do have higher expectations for adults. I will give children 15 and under a pass when I'm talking about social skills. But when we get older, there's a little bit less of a pass. And this, even if like you're of a different neurotype, even if you're neurodivergent in some way, that still doesn't permit bullying just because you are neurodivergent or that person is neurodivergent. This is not okay. We really have to find a better way to interact. So we need better boundaries with each other. Hey, I'm not okay with you talking to me like that. I'm going to need you to find a different way, please. And, maybe if you have to, involve supervisors if necessary. I know this conversation can get very complicated because when we're talking about work, we're also talking about a culture involved with the work. We're also talking about the patriarchy that is embedded in the vast majority of workplaces that sometimes go out of their way to make a work environment uncomfortable, especially for women or for anybody who doesn't identify as a man. So there's really a lot of factors that go into the conversation of bullying at work. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah. We can't like nail it down in a 2-minute. A lot of the things that you and I are talking about, I really hope that people who watch will just feel inspired by the kernel of information that we're offloading. And then maybe it inspires them to learn or do a little bit more self-work on themselves because they've had permission to know that like, I'm a big fan of therapy or of all of the work. So, hopefully people can look more into it. And I know I'm putting you in a situation where I'm like, talk about this in a nutshell, but it's really so much grander than that.
I love it.
2023, like, you're my last guest at Women Crush Wednesday. I'm like so honored.
I'm so lucky.
And so grateful. I get to end the year with someone that I so deeply respect the meaningful work that you're doing. Thank you. When you are Bryana and founder, creator of The Conscious Mommy, how do you like roll into 2023? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, so I've got some self-work going on. My big thing that I've been really spending a lot of time focusing on is working through my feelings of self-rejection. And so I've been making a lot of movement there and finding myself less rejecting of myself. And so that's a really big intention. I have an intention to spend more time and more really work on my relationship with my husband. That's really been tough just with the young kids. And I know a lot of families with very young children can relate to just how hard it is in these early years. And then I've got a lot going on with the business. I have a foundations program that I'm going to be putting out next year. I am, my book proposal is almost done. And so my hope is to get this book proposal out and get the book going. Maybe by sometime in 2024, the book will actually be on the shelves. So yeah, lots of great things ahead, and personal work, professional work. It's lovely. How about you? What are your intentions for next year?
Yeah,
I want to hear that.
Thank you. I love that. My word of this year was peace, and then my second half word was safety.
Love that.
And honestly, this next year is about relationships.
Good.
I have intimacy issues. I'm aware of this with everyone in my life, with friends, with anybody. And I feel like I am wanting to be more intentional about I had so many wonderful people show up for me this year with everything I was going through and losing my dad and my brother. Literally, I want to give that gift back. And so how I was so showed up for makes me realize like it's such a gift to actually just be there for people. And I don't need to do anything more than that, than just like kind of show gratitude in that way. So that's really what my 2023 is going to look like. Plus I'm going to I want to write a bucket list journal.
I love it.
Because I'm noticing I'm a waiter, I'm a procrastinator, and it's been really helpful to become intentional about what I want my year to look like. And so, and it's really fun to do, by the way.
It is.
Oh, I want to do this. So
that's beautiful.
Thank you for asking.
Of course.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So thank you. And honestly, you've given me such a generous amount of your time. And I cannot wait to deep dive your course.
I can't wait to hear.
I signed up today. I
cannot wait to hear what you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Continue to be such a big inspiration. I hope one day I get to meet you. Thank you, Victoria, for putting us in connection. I love Victoria. She's such a, like, she sings your praises too. But happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Erin. Thanks for having me. And bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Bryana.